Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm coming to you from Yosemite National Park. Just kidding. I'm not actually in Yosemite National Park. It's just a fake background. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. Today, we have a great topic, Introduction to nanoSTAKE, the revolutionary plastic staking technology. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Before we get started, just want to let you know that there's a question and answer feature so that you can ask questions throughout this presentation. The panel should already be open for you on the right-hand side of your screen, but in case it's not, there's a little icon in the top right corner where it's got a question mark inside of a little chat icon, and if you click on that, open it up, you can see a spot near the bottom where you can put in your name and type a question or a comment. Why don't we get everybody warmed up and make sure that you use that by putting your name and then put in your favorite place to vacation or visit, whether that's a national park or a cottage somewhere. Just type that in, and as those roll in, we'll make sure that that's working for everybody. Today's presenters are Nate Kuzy and Casey House. Nate Kuzy is our staking business unit manager, so he's well versed in all of Extol's staking technologies, and then Casey House is our staking technology specialist. So without further ado, Nate, take it away.
Thank you, Jason. Hello, everybody. Thanks again for joining us to learn more about this patented heat staking technology. So let's dive right in and talk about why this technology was developed. There's lots of parts that are being manufactured by automotive lighting manufacturers and also PC boards. People are putting components in a small, compact area, and we wanted to develop a technology that was able to get into those small, compact spaces. As we go through this video, I just wanted to talk about two different ways that you can get nanoSTAKE at your plant. The first one is a complete machine. If you want to provide a request for quote direct to Extol, we do build custom turnkey machines with nanoSTAKE on it. If you have your preferred machine builders in your local area and you want to use those, you can specify in your request for quote to use nanoSTAKE technology from Extol, and those machine builders will contact Extol to get an integration quote in the package. So I'm going to play a video here. I'm going to play it a couple different times. If the video does not come through on your end, sometimes with these webinars it can be a bit choppy, but we are going to provide a copy of the presentation sometime later for you, so you will have this, and it's also on our website as well. So you can see on the left-hand side it shows a thermal image, and then on the right-hand side you can see the tip coming down. It heats, and then it forms it. It cools to a specific temperature, and it's instantly cool to the touch. You can see in this specific application for this small clear boss, your total cycle time was just over 8 seconds. I'm going to play this one more time so you can watch the thermal image again. And again, I do want to point out the fact that this is instantly cool to the touch. This does eliminate a lot of residual heat and sticking and stringing. So let's take a look a little bit deeper for the staking process. On the left-hand side here, you can see the red component is our heater within the module tip. And then we also have an embedded temperature sensor. So what we do is we heat this to a specific melt temperature. Then we bring the module tip down to form the boss, and we bring it down to a specific final staking position. We then apply some cooling air to a specific cool temp, and then retract it. I do want to point out, I'm going to say a couple times during this webinar that the key to this technology is a closed loop process control. And this has to do with bringing this to a specific cooling temperature. During the staking process, the LED indicator on the module tip will change colors. We have blue, yellow, red, orange, and green depending on the temperature of the module tip. This is a great visual indicator for your operator on the machine. These will also blink if there's a specific fault, so it's a very quick way to see which module may have a fault in your specific application. So we refer to this as a smart respond heating technology. Again, this closed loop process control, along with your position sensor and in your embedded temperature sensor, will assure you that you get a great quality steak each and every time. I want to talk a little bit about how repeatable this technology is. What we do is we start out at ambient temperature and we bring this up to a designated temperature, and we do this over and over again from part to part and cycle to cycle. This next slide, what I'm going to show you is an actual test conducted by Extol. This is 100 cycles, and you can see how repeatable this is from part to part. And as I mentioned before, bringing this down to ambient temperature each and every time reduces your stinging and sticking. One thing we wanted to do as we developed this technology is make this easy for machine builders and integrators. This technology only uses a low current and a low voltage, providing for small wires and small connections. We also don't have a lot of large transformers on the machine, so this is great and easy for the machine builders. As we talked about, this is developed for small and compact spaces. On the right-hand side here, you'll see the module tip that's only 8 millimeters in diameter. We get a lot of questions from customers, well, how small of a boss can you stake, and how large of a steak can your technology or nanoSTAKE stake? We have gone smaller than 0.5 millimeter in diameter. As far as how large can you stake, we typically talk in a volume, so no larger than 48 cubic millimeters, and for a round boss, that's roughly 4 millimeters in diameter and 4 millimeters tall. We do have a couple of design guidelines on our website. You can reference those for standard sizes for both round bosses and tabs. We utilize an independent process control. We often refer to it as a system controller. We get the start signal from your machine PLC, and the system controller manages all those processes through the staking process. The independent process controller also provides data back to your machine PLC. I want to show you a few different slides from our HMI. This is one of the main screens, and on the left-hand side here, you'll see a live graph, and this shows your temperature and your position for each module that you have in your application. So depending on your material and your part, you actually set your melt temperature. You can also adjust your dwell position and your dwell time. And then again, I'm going to talk about this closed loop process control, and the key here is your release temperature. You can adjust this as well. On the right-hand side, on the lower bottom, you can see some overall information like your overall cycle time. On the top here, there's 3 different quality areas: position, time, and temperature. And if you click on that section of the HMI, it'll bring you to this screen. On the top, you have position, time, and temperature tabs. And this information and data is again shown for each and every module. So on the position tab, you have 2 important parameters, which is your boss position or boss presence, and then also your final position. So you as the customer, you can adjust these to your own quality parameters. Here on the right-hand side, it's very simple. All you do is click the upper or lower parameter and click this plus or minus button, and it'll adjust it to 1/10 of a millimeter. This is great for you as a customer as you're staking parts. If you do have one that, let's say a boss broke off, the machine will then give the operator a fault. Another thing that I wanted to show you is how easy it is to adjust your dwell position. This can simply be done by tapping the HMI screen. You don't have to have a mechanical adjustment on the machine for this. Another great feature is being able to lock this out with a password. This makes it so that not every operator can adjust the dwell position as they feel necessary. So let's talk about a few features that the nanoSTAKE technology offers. The first is a validation mode. What this does is Red Rabbit part testing. And for those of you that are not aware what Red Rabbit means, this is basically a known defective part, and it's often painted red. So let's say, for instance, you have your part and you purposely break off the bosses on it. What you do is you set the machine in validation mode. The process does not heat up your module tips in this case, and you run a cycle, and this will validate that the technology is catching your defective parts as it should. These are often used before the beginning of a shift or the beginning of the week. Another great feature is dataPLUS. What this does is export data to the PLC over the internet. We have multiple different data values coming from your module and your system. We talked a little bit about your quality data, the boss presence, and your final stake position. This can also provide some cycle time or even faults for a particular module. Certain OEs like Ford are really driving this and prefer this data capturing at the tier 1 and tier 2 levels. Another feature is called Smart Release. So we talked before about the 4 phases of heating, forming, cooling, and retracting. What we do is we add a phase in here, the 4th one, as you can see. We bring this to a specific release temp. And what this does is it briefly reheats the punch before retracting to help release from sticky materials. Each module then gently pulls away from the stake and retract as soon as it is done sticking. So if you're using a different technology out there and you have a specific part or application, you want Extol to test or try the Smart Release, the nanoSTAKE with a Smart Release, please feel free to send us your parts, your application, and we'll be happy to test Smart Release on your part. Another great feature, as we talked about for machine builders and integrators, is our I/O monitor processing screen. You can see on the left-hand side just a few examples, again, like your boss validation, your enable signal, your validation mode. These are inputs from your PLC to your system controller. On the right-hand side, we have outputs from your system controller to your PLC. What the machine builder can do is force these on and off. So let's take the modules, the cooling air for the module, for example. The machine builder can force these on and off and make sure that everything is corrected or plumbed correctly and make sure it's functioning as it should. So let's talk a little bit about the components that make up an integration package. We talked about the independent process controller or the system controller. This is available in the 10-inch and the 7-inch option. Next, we have a small black box that is a microcontroller, and we call this our module controller. On the left-hand side, you can see there's connections for your potentiometer and heater that connect to your modules. On the right-hand side, there's a small window on the box that allows you, with LED lights, to visually look to see if there's appropriate power in your enable inputs. So the core technology, or the base module as we call it, has your LED indicator, contains your heater and your embedded temperature sensor. What we do is we take 2 screws and we install that onto your air cylinder, which also has your potentiometer on it. I want to talk a little bit about the positional control on your base module with your air cylinder. On the left-hand side, we refer to this as one-to-one control. On the right-hand side, this is called a multi-point configuration. If you have numerous points and maybe you have something on a headlight, a particular obstruction that is getting in the way, we're able to take multi-points up to 6 and put them on one air cylinder. And in this case, if you do that, you get one positional feedback control for all the modules that are on that multi-point configuration. This is just a valuable way, easy way to make sure you can fit everything in and stake all in one shot. Another neat feature is a hard stop limit, which is located on your air cylinder. Say you have a PC board and you want to make sure that you don't drive the heating tip into the board. You can adjust this nut to where you need to so that the module tip does not drive into the PC board every time. So this is a snapshot of the complete integration layout with all the components. On the left-hand side, you have your solenoid valves that plumb into your regulators and your air manifolds. You then plumb those into the nanoSTAKE module. The module is then connected to the module controller and involves your potentiometer, LED indicator, and your heater control. Each module controller controls up to 4 modules. So if your application has more than 4 modules, it's very simple to daisy chain your module controllers together. Your module controllers are then connected to your system controller. As you can see, this controls up to a total of 32 modules. I want to talk a little bit about the engineering services that Extol has to offer, specifically our product development center. If you have a specific design that you think may be applicable for nanoSTAKE, we have a group of employees that designate their time to look at your CAD and determine if nanoSTAKE is feasible or it's not feasible. They can also make design recommendations back to you with a formal report. If you have some parts, actual physical parts, we can do some strength testing and cycle time testing as well. So this is very valuable, and I really highly suggest that if you do have a design, that you keep us involved very upfront, because it's very helpful to help you make sure that design is appropriate for nanoSTAKE. If you also have a machine, potential order of a machine, we have a group of employees in our manufacturing solutions center. We can work with you to help meet certain cycle time requirements or how the automations should work. At the end of the process, we also have the technical support and service once the product gets to your plant. And then I also want to point out real quick, Extol has 3 multi-jet fusion printers. We are able to print certain materials and actually nanoSTAKE or heat stake them. So if you want some conceptual designs made and see how they work, we can print them and then actually heat stake those. So here's just a quick recap of the nanoSTAKE advantages. It is a patented technology. I've talked a few times about the closed loop process control that sets it apart from other heat staking technologies in the market. We have some quality control screens that are very beneficial and add value to the operators in the process. This is password protected, so your operators just can't start making adjustments as they feel necessary. There's no large transformers on the machine. Then a few features, smart release and dataPLUS. And then the LED indicator is a great, simple visual indicator for the operator as they are staking it from part to part. And lastly, the Extol support. We pride ourselves in making sure we provide the support and service needed from start to finish, whether it's the design, whether it's the manufacturability with your machine, or just helping with the process once the machine is at your plant. So you can learn more about this at nanostake.com. If you also go to YouTube, there are some nanoSTAKE videos on there as well. So that's all I have right now. Let's open it up for questions.
All right. Thank you, Nate. That was really well done. We do have some questions that came in during the presentation. We'll get to those now. So the first question is that somebody was told by Extol that a 5 millimeter diameter by 5 millimeter high boss is acceptable for nanoSTAKE, whereas we talked just now about 4 by 4. So they're saying, should I be concerned? Can you answer that?
Absolutely. It's a great question. So these are rough guidelines, and there's a lot that goes into a boss and your design, and there's certain things like your strength requirements. So for instance, if you flatten that formed boss out over a larger area, you're going to lose a little bit of strength, but you may be able to capture some of that volume, or maybe you have a bigger clearance hole. So is it possible to do a 5 millimeter by 5 millimeter? It probably is, but there's a lot more factors that go into making sure that that will work.
Great. The data that comes from the nanoSTAKE process, can that information be viewed off-site? I know you talked about dataPLUS. Maybe now would be a great time to recap that.
Casey, do you want to field this one?
Yeah, sure. I can jump in. Yes, it can be. Simple answer is yes. So dataPLUS allows the system to work as a Modbus TCP server. So you can take that SPC data and you can export it essentially and do whatever you would like with it. So you can view it offsite if that's what you would like to do. It's just exportable.
Nice. Another question. How is the heat generated in nanoSTAKE? Is it with an IR light bulb?
There's a small heater, and one of that slides with the red component showed it. It's about the size of a watch battery, but it's some proprietary componentry that's used in the very tip of the module. That's about the extent of what we are willing to talk about with that small compact heater.
I think if I can jump in real quick, I think the important part is to differentiate that this is not an infrared source of energy. This actually has a heater in it. It should be considered differently than our InfraSTAKE product.
Yeah, that's
good point, Casey. Yeah, the InfraSTAKE is an IR energy producing technology, where this is a conduction technology.
Another question is, have we conducted any of our own vibration testing? I'm guessing they're talking about like on staked parts.
So that's a very specific to your part or the customer's application. We typically don't do vibration testing. We typically leave that up to the tier ones or the OEs, but we get that a lot, and we're happy to do prototype parts and do the actual staking in our product development center, provide the parts back to the customer, and they do the vibration testing.
Gotcha. Is adding dataPLUS after the fact more difficult or more expensive than having it right up front?
You want me to field this one?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. It can be added after the fact. It does not cost any different than if it is included in the package, in the original purchase, excuse me. dataPLUS is a feature that does add cost to the package. I believe it's about $300 per staking point, whether it's purchased before or after, and it's as simple as us just turning that functionality on. So it's very simple, and the price is the same. Which I believe, Jason, probably leads us right into the next question. I saw a question pop up that is, what is the cost per point for a system like this? And I guess what I would suggest for that is the pricing is very similar to our InfraSTAKE product. If you're familiar with that, you're going to be somewhere around the $2,000 per point range, but there's a lot of factors that go into this: controllers, options, features. I would invite you that if you do need a price, please contact us and we can get you a very quick budgetary price, either via phone or email.
That is all the questions that we have. If there's any more questions that come in, we can field those later. If you think of questions afterwards and you'd want to ask those, then go ahead and send those in via email. We will follow up with everybody and provide a copy of this presentation along with the recording from today, and you can feel free to view those. Please go to nanostake.com to educate yourself and learn some more and see some of the nanoSTAKE videos that are there. You can look at the design guidelines, and of course, reach out if you have any questions about nanoSTAKE. We're happy to help. We'd love to see your application and talk through that and evaluate it for you and help you decide whether nanoSTAKE is the right technology for you. There are a couple other questions that just popped up while I was talking. So does dataPLUS have the parameters that the machine started working?
So I think whoever's asking this is, will it save everything as a history? And yes, from the time you put it on, it will continue to save those points. Well, it will export them from its initial install. So as long as it's put on at the very beginning of the machine, then yes, it'll export the entire history.
One other question is about the shape of plastic bosses. In ultrasonic welding, it's helpful for that tip of the boss to be pointy to help speed up the material melt. Does that ring true for nanoSTAKE as well?
The typical shape is more of a dome shape, but that can be a preference and designed by the customer or end user as well. There's rosette styles. Some customers prefer that, but again, a dome style often gives you the optimum strength over that clearance hole.
I think, Nate, this question may be driven towards the boss prior to being staked. Does it help if it's pointed? I suspect. And then actually I would say, no, it doesn't help. There's no advantage to that. A flat top boss works really, really well. And actually, because this is conduction, the more surface area we can touch inside of the cavity at the end of the module, the better, because more surface area means we can conduct energy over a wider range faster.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. If there's any other questions that you have afterwards, feel free to either reply to the email that you get from us or send us an email directly. Thank you so much everybody for joining, and have a great afternoon.